this drip feed of information of the Zondo Commission into the public life and into the public eye has created a level of transparency that we quite frankly haven't seen in this country before. And that, coupled with this new political party funding act, is only going to double down on that process.
What role does money play in South African politics? Well, a new piece of legislation that was introduced earlier this year, the Political Party Funding Act, has had profound ramifications for political parties and their ability to access funding. Joining me to discuss is Jonathan van Rensburg. He is a chartered accountant and somebody who spends a lot of time looking at the role of money in politics. Jonathan, welcome to the CRA. Could you tell our viewers what are some of the impacts of this Political Party Funding Act on political parties in South Africa?
Sure, David. So yes, I mean, it's been an interesting time, and this one's really, it's crept under the radar a little bit. I suppose we've been talking about other things, but what we've heard a lot about how this might have an impact on opposition parties. It was signed into law in around April this year by President Cyril Ramaphosa. And what's interesting about the act is it starts laying the groundwork for firstly more transparency, and secondly the type of funding that can be received by political parties. The important points to know is anyone or company contributing over 100,000 Rand in a single donation to a political party needs to be recorded. That recorded list needs to be audited and submitted to the IEC. And within 3 months of what the IEC calls the financial year end, yes, political parties have year ends too. We as the public should start getting a view of who those individuals are at that point. So it creates the spotlight of transparency in a place where previously there hasn't been any. The other interesting limit that gets put on political party funding is an upper limit of 15 million Rand from an individual donor making its way into an individual political party. It'd be interesting to see how that affects the income or the donation pools that the parties can draw on. We've heard murmurs of it being potentially prejudicial to some opposition parties, but already we're starting to see it play out in the ruling parties' debacle. The last thing to note around what that act is trying to do is also, it's not saying don't contribute to the political process. It's set up a vehicle within the Independent Electoral Commission jurisdiction, effectively a fund where you can donate more than 15 million as an individual donor, and that money then just gets dispersed between all the political parties, in part on an equal share, each political party getting an equal amount, and in part on a proportional representation basis as well. So those are the three things to realize and keep in mind. Promulgated here in South Africa in April 2021, so we should be able to start seeing who donated what to whom by the time those financial year ends roll around.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
And obviously, the backdrop to all of this, we have the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, which is drip feeding many allegations and also some prima facie evidence of corruption and illicit funds flowing into the party. And there were allegations around Mr. Ramaphosa's campaign costing north of 400 million Rand. This is when he was running for president of the ANC. So money, and big money, plays a role within the African National Congress. What is your thinking around the state of the ANC at the moment financially, and how this legislation might impact on their ability to hold the party together?
It is the $1 million question, excuse the pun, David. So really, I'm a simple accountant. I like to look at things, debits and credits, income and expenses. And you've got to ask yourself the question, what is happening to those two line items within the ANC fold that's impacting their ability to carry on operating in what we in the accounting circles call as a going concern? Now, the big thing we're seeing is the inability to pay staff, the inability to pay contractors like Ipsos, bringing significant liability claims against the party. And really, that's on the expense side of the equation. The first thing to ask yourself is, what is what is this political party vehicle supposed to do in the first place? This business it's effectively in the business of developing policy, trying to disseminate that policy and win hearts and minds, and then activate that political machinery to actually turn out the vote. Now, the extent to which that has or hasn't happened within the ANC machinery of late, given all of the other shenanigans that they've been having to deal with effectively the head of that business vehicle, Ace Makashule, fighting for his own political and frankly legal life in the ensuing months. The extent to which those core processes have been given their due is questionable. But the other thing to look at is the income point of view in the first place. Like you've said, this drip feed of information of the Zondo Commission into the public life and into the public eye has created a level of transparency that we quite frankly haven't seen in this country before. And that, coupled with this new political party funding act, is only going to double down on that process. What that means practically is people who might have been willing to give money to a party like the ANC or any other political party, in the shadows or outside of the public eye, are no longer going to be able to do that. Something like the Zondo Commission is putting them under the spotlight, and so is this political party funding act. The last point to make here is that the act also prohibits things like state-owned enterprises, I suppose proto-state entities, from putting money directly into a political party. So that may also be another sign of a drying up of that income stream that the ANC has previously relied on.
Yeah, Jonathan, I find it ironic that many senior political leaders that came from the ANC tradition have made many billions of rands because of their political connections through high-level BEE deals, but now when the party is in dire financial straits, they're nowhere to be seen and their wallets remain shut. But now let's look briefly at the opposition, because when this legislation was in the pipeline, it seemed that might have a chilling effect on donors and their willingness to support opposition parties. Many businesses don't want to be seen as being anti-government. Do you think that there might be similar risks for opposition parties arising from this legislation?
I think there's 2 points to make here, David. The one is the other point of transparency that we've seen in terms of political party funding has been in the EFF fold and what's happening under the VBS circumstance. We've seen money changing hands. When a lot of this is still alleged, but frankly, if reporters are at the Daily Maverick and surrounds are pulling this sort of information into the public sphere, that's another layer of transparency that's happening. It'll be very interesting to see how that cross-correlates with what we see in their disclosures. And remember, those disclosures have to be audited. Someone's got to affix their name to those lists and say, this is what I saw happening in a bank account, and this is what they've disclosed as a result. So very quickly, we're going to have another layer of evidence in those sorts of fold. That's the first point. The second point is another mechanism that has been introduced by the Political Party Funding Act is this prohibition of any sort of funding from foreign sources. So anyone with interest in local South African politics, be they within the African Union or African fold or abroad, that money is now scrutinized more carefully and also needs to be transported through the IEC vehicle on a more transparent basis. Now, we don't know the various donation pools that are filling other parties. And it wouldn't be the first time in our world context that we've seen outside foreign players trying to fund political parties in countries that aren't their own. So the extent to which that might be a factor that people are putting on the table and that those that are concerned about is also something to consider. A final point to make is the big concern that was raised by the DA was this concern around political and governmental retribution for the funding of an opposition party. If you were found to be funding the opposing side, there might be some sort of a ramification through a state-owned enterprise, which we know cadre deployment being what it is. There is a political machination. There may be a political rearguard for coming through the latest tender that you no longer get awarded if your company is found to be funding one of the opposition parties. So that was one of their concerns. How that all comes out in the wash remains to be seen. It's going to be a very exciting 6 to 12 months alongside all of the other political machinations that we witness in our country.
Jonathan van Rensburg, thank you very much for joining us on the CRA. If you enjoyed this content, please do give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Also, let us know your thoughts by commenting below. My name is David Ansara. This is the Center for Risk Analysis. Until next time, take care.